Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has issued a final notice today to what he describes the fugitive leaders of the country's embattled Tigray region, saying that they should surrender peacefully to avoid severe punishment and prevent the misery of their people. At the same time, he's urged the hundreds of thousands of ethnic Tigrayans who have fled their communities over the past 4 months of fighting to return to their homes within a week and resume what he describes normal lives. Meanwhile, the US President Joe Biden has sent an envoy, Senator Chris Coons, to Ethiopia to meet Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed over Biden's serious concerns about the humanitarian crisis in the Tigray region. Well, to give us an insight into this deadly conflict that's left hundreds of thousands displaced and millions facing the prospect of hunger, I'm now joined by Ethiopia's former ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Fisseha Asgedom. Thank you so much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So the focus at the moment, and perhaps rightly so, is very much on the current conflict that's been raging for 4 months now. Thousands killed, hundreds of thousands displaced, and millions facing famine. But I guess with most of these conflicts, there's a historical context. And I just wonder if we could begin there to give us a sense of what led to what we're seeing now.
Thank you so much, Peter. In a nutshell, it is a difference between what leaders and politicians are oriented to. The problem in Ethiopia is one of political, constitutional, and to some extent ideological. And it shouldn't have led to a war. We have what we consider relatively stable federal arrangement in Ethiopia for over 27 years. With all its shortcomings, people were accommodated. We are a very diversified country, and the federal arrangement was meant to answer to that. All of a sudden, in the name of reform, in 2018, a new leader came, and he wanted to undo everything and anything that the previous government has accomplished, including huge projects, mega projects, including the infrastructure, the health, and most of all, he wanted a unitary state that looks like what we have during the kings and kings of Ethiopia. And now he has made an alliance with a brutal dictator of Eritrea to run this terrible war against his own population. So it is a difference between what we call in Ethiopia, those that they consider themselves, they are superior to others, and the country belongs to this particular ethnic group, and those that live, we are a country of diversity, and there has to be accommodation, and the Tigray regional government happens to be the one of those that will not accept a central government without decentralization of power. That is the main reason that we are in here. Last September, when Abiy postponed the election, taking the COVID-19 pandemic as an excuse, the Tigray regional government ran an election with 2.8 people participating in the poll, and the government was elected. And he felt this was a threat to his own throne. That is where we are today.
The Prime Minister says that this all kicked off because the TPLF, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front troops, attacked Ethiopian military barracks.
It is true. The government of Addis Ababa would like you to believe, and it has worked to some extent, that the war started when this confrontation was in Tigray. It took 2 years to coordinate, to conduct this war. By the time the Northern Command and the Tigray Defense Forces were fighting each other, it has already started in the borders of Tigray. Abiy ordered all Eritrean and Ethiopian defense forces to surround and wage a war and capture, kill, all those regional governments were sitting in the office. 3 days before that, he has already ordered that the leader should be captured. Yes, the Tigray Defense Forces have this intelligence. They were surrounded. The regional government president have told the world that we are being surrounded. Soldiers are coming from Eritrea, the Amhara region, the central government. And just because there was a shootout and the North Command was neutralized, many wanted to believe that was the start of the war. I can tell you that wasn't the start. As a matter of fact, the regional government of Amhara, none other than the Polish commissioner, has said, we were already inside Tigray coordinating with the National Army when this happened. Because 3 days before that, Abiy has already ordered both the North Command in the center and then the periphery to attack the regional government. So that was just not at the beginning of the war.
So what is the situation on the ground now? The Prime Minister seems to think that the fighting has subsided, apart from a few isolated shooting incidents. What has been happening? Because information coming out of there has been very difficult because of a blackout. But what has been filtering out? What can you tell us about what's been happening to the Tigrayans?
The war is raging. In fact, the war is much more at the higher level, at the highest level. More machinery, more people are entering Tigray, and the people of Tigray are trying to defend themselves now than when Abiy Ahmed announced that the war is over. The Eritrean troops are there, creating havoc. All international community now aware what they are doing there. They have completely destroyed the region. They are killing people, innocent people. They are raping women. And the whole aim of Isaias Afwerki and Abiy is to subdue these people, the Tigray people that has resisted their dictatorship. So when Abiy says the war is over and the world says, why don't you allow the international media to see for themselves? We just have few media outlets entering Tigray now, and they can tell for themselves. The war is going to be over when the Tigray people are free. Eritrean forces have back to Eritrea. They have no problem. They have no business in Tigray. When the Amhara militias, who are now controlling both the west and the south part of Tigray, and they are creating their own local administration, until they are ejected from Tigray, the Tigray people will resist this aggression. The whole world is talking about the Eritrean withdrawal from Tigray, except the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. To this day, he's not even acknowledged personally that they're there. Whereas his envoys and regional administration are saying they are in Tigray, in fact, they have to go away. So we have a government in Ethiopia, in the history of the country for the first time, inviting a neighboring country, a brutal, for that matter, to wage a war against its own citizens. It is appalling. And the world is just looking there until this minority. Only 6 million people in Tigray out of 110 plus million Ethiopians, and 500,000 army is now in Tigray from all this, both from Ethiopia and outside Ethiopia.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the politics behind some of these issues. What is the wish of the Tigrayan people? Is it a separate state away from Ethiopia? Are we talking secession here? What is the wish and the end game for the people of Tigray?
The Tigray government was elected last September as just one regional government. The people of Tigray wanted their government, their legitimate government, to be back in position, back to administer Tigray, as part and parcel of the federal arrangement. But what I can tell you is, after this horrendous war, the people of Tigray has been pushed so far. They feel that not only the whole Ethiopia, but the whole world has completely ignored them. They're being killed day in, day out. And no people in Ethiopia are speaking against these heinous crimes. I am not sure if we have Ethiopia today will continue to be one. As of now, we are only asking that the legitimate government of Tigray be back in its place, the status quo ante before November, and Ethiopia will have to see to itself how it could continue with a national dialogue that will include not only the Tigray leadership, but all those that are in jail, outside the country, in the periphery, even fighting the central government from other parts of the world. So this is what we are saying. Ethiopia, no matter what happens in Tigray, can only continue to be a country if the central government comes to its sense and accommodates all that are fighting for their freedom, fighting for their dignity. That's what we are doing right now. We cannot afford to talk about how to continue with Ethiopia or without Ethiopia right now. We are fighting a brutal army from neighboring country and from our own country. And the Tigray people will say, yes, we would like to continue within Ethiopia, or if they say this is enough, we can't continue with this country that is doing this to us, it is up to them. But they don't have the luxury of deciding that right now.
The Eritrean involvement in this conflict, help us understand why President Isaias Afwerki would involve himself in an internal matter of Ethiopia.
Well, Isaias is a dictator. Isaias only knows to destabilize his neighbors. He picked a fight with Yemen, with Sudan, with Djibouti. We went to war with Eritrea, 1998. That's all he does. He doesn't have any other thing to do. He has ruined his own country. The tragedy is Abiy invited him because they found a common enemy in the leadership of Tigray and the Tigray people themselves. Why? As I said earlier, Tigray and many other ethnic groups in Ethiopia would like to continue with the federal arrangement that gives them a say in the national policy. Isaias doesn't want to see this. And he hates his neighbors, the Tigrayans, who have more common with Eritrea, because he feels he was defeated, put in the corner, classified as the North Korea of Africa, with the war that he started in 1998, and he blames that on the Tigray leadership. The Prime Minister was Meles Zenawi, that you know, and we are neighbors. Yes, along with other Ethiopians, we did defeat Isaias. We put him where he belongs. And he has 20 years to think about this, to get against his revenge against the Tigray people. And it is not his fault. He is a dictator. He is a maniac who has destroyed his own country. Why did Abiy Ahmed invite him to do this to his own citizens? So many people ask why a dictator like that will do this. He has no other things to do. That's all he does. He has ruined his own country. Now he has completely destroyed Tigray. Completely. Infrastructures. For the first time in any war that we know, armies are destroying clinics, hospitals, companies, factories, on purpose, because he has said he will send Tigray back to the Stone Age. And Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, gave him a certificate to do that. And the world has to look what's happening. The world gave Abiy Ahmed the Nobel Peace Prize as a certificate to kill his own people.
The official word from Addis is that any soldiers that are involved in extrajudicial killings and any atrocities will be investigated and dealt with. So the question I have is, the soldiers on their ground, are they acting under orders, or are they perhaps going beyond their orders and perhaps are just being exuberant with their force?
Well, you can look at that in two ways. One, we believe this is a project that was well thought for 2 years. Isaias and Abiy had a deal. If things has gone beyond and above what they do, what they told, they are responsible. When you allow this kind of savage army from Eritrea to invade Tigray, you are responsible for the outcome. Yes, they are brutalizing because they were given the certificate. Number two, we are calling for United Nations sponsored international investigation to ascertain the systematic abuse of power, war crime, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing. At that time, I am sure the world come to realize that this was well directed by both Isaias and Abiy. It is not an isolated incident by a group of soldiers or a general here or there. The whole thing is orchestrated with the Amhara militias, the Eritrean army, and the Addis Ababa government to make Tigray subdue and destroy the people. Therefore, it is not an isolated incident, and they are going to be accountable. They are going to be investigated. They are going to be responsible for what is happening in Tigray.
The initial plan was just to remove the leadership of Tigray when they came into the region in November last year. But this conflict has now moved 4 months and beyond. It looks as if it can't be won militarily. It looks like it could only be a political solution that could probably solve this. What might that look like? And do you think that both sides are ready to sit at a table?
The initial plan was not, as stated by the Addis Ababa government, to seize and to bring to justice less than 500 people from Tigray. You don't need that many army from Eritrea. 90% of the army in Eritrea, almost all of Ethiopian defense forces, militias from Amhara, about 3,000 soldiers from Somali, drones from the United Arab Emirates. You don't need that to capture about what they say, less than 500 people. And so far they said they have less than 200 apprehended. That was not the intention. The intention was to destroy Tigray as people and to destroy the infrastructure and to kill the spirit of the Tigrayans. They thought, yes, right now they are on the defensive. They have no other solution to come to a negotiating table. We are calling for a ceasefire. We are calling for a status quo ante for the Tigray government to be placed where it was, for an international investigation. And before all that happens, the invading army of Isaias have to leave Tigray. Otherwise, the Tigray people will continue to fight. As you know, they are in their homes, in their churches. Their churches are being burned. Their mosques are being looted. They have no choice. They have to defend their homes. So they will continue to fight until this invading army leaves Tigray, or they come to the sense and Abiy sits down and we talk on political solutions at the end of the day.
Can there be a return to the pre-war situation, given that so many people have been killed, hundreds of thousands displaced, and millions facing hunger? When you sit at the table, can you ever get back to that which was before, or things will never be the same again?
Look, what I can tell you is the only way out of this war is to sit down and negotiate. The alternative is to continue. And we have seen that. Therefore, whatever the outcome is, to go back to where it was, to have a better one, or any other exit, we have to sit down and talk and come back to some kind of political solution. That's all I can tell you. On the part of the Tigray regional government, we are saying, so long as the Eritreans leave Tigray, the Amhara militias leave to their region, we are ready to sit down and talk. And that is when we'll find out what other solutions will come from the other side. Abiy is not willing to do that because he is threatened by both. Now, he cannot even tell Isaias to leave. We have seen it on the ground. The Eritreans are saying, nobody will eject them. Abiy has no power to do that. That's what they're saying on the ground. The regional governments, the regional leaders that are now administering the region say the Eritreans have to go, but we don't have the muscle, we don't have the authority. They are under their own command. They are issuing certificates and ID cards in Tigray. They are claiming territories as they belong to them. So Abiy is in a quagmire, but he has no other solution but to take a chance in sitting down and talking. Otherwise, he will lose.
So what do you make of his statement today? He says that the fugitive leaders of the embattled Tigray region should surrender peacefully, else otherwise they'll face severe punishment. And this is the only way to prevent the misery of their people. What do you make of that warning then? It doesn't sound like somebody who's about to stop war or give up or even negotiate.
Abiy propaganda is too much for me to speculate, but this is what's happening. He is under a lot of pressure. The whole world is now talking about Tigray and the havoc he created, human rights abuses, genocide, what have you. The Security Council is speaking about what needs to be done. He's being accused already of starving people, using food as a war of weapon. Sexual violence and rape are the weapon of war. And therefore, while he's trying to send signals to the international community that he's willing to do this, to invite human rights organizations, what have you, he has a constituency in Ethiopia and he has to address them. And he's telling them, after all this, after he has declared that this is just a police operation after November 23rd or so, after all this huge army that is entering Tigray now and then, he's saying he's just calling for a few Tigrayans to surrender. It is a joke, but unfortunately, it is the heinous crime of the mind.
The issue of regional authority, these nations within the federation, could Tigray be seen as a case study in terms of how the central government can manage, can chart a course for the future for the country? Because there are other parts of the country that have the same sentiments as the Tigrayans towards the central government.
Well, when Abiy came to power, he did not start with Tigray. Tigray was, in fact, until November, the most peaceful. I live in Tigray. I live in Mekelle. It was the most peaceful region in the country. The rest of the country was in turmoil for 2.5 years. He completely destroyed the federal arrangement in Ethiopia, first in Somalia, and then in Oromia. For 2 years, he waged war against all opposition groups there. He put the leaders there in jail. They are still there. In the south, destroyed the federal arrangement. He appointed his own people. In Benshangul Gumuz, we still have now refugees trickling to Sudan, over 50,000 of them. So what happened is, the only difference in Tigray is the Tigray region has a much more experienced leadership. It is the place where this federal arrangement was first espoused. Army struggle against the brutal regime of Mengistu Haile Mariam started in Tigray, and Abiy feels if he can crush Tigray and its leadership and its people, the rest of the country will fall under his fate. For now, it looks like it. He has completely muscled the rest of the country. All political leaders are in jail, but Tigray is putting up a heavy resistance. And that's why he brought all these unbelievable forces to Tigray to make a case out of it. And he's going to go down the drain with it. He can't. He cannot win this war because, as I said earlier, the Tigray people have only choice to defend themselves, their homes, their family, their culture, their history. He is looting as much as he can, allowing the Eritreans to loot. Shamefully, the Ethiopian troops looting the Tigrayan property, including historical manuscripts from churches and mosques, but he can never loot the spirit of the Tigray people. They're fighting for their existence. The rest of the country, for now, it looks like he's just killing, and it looks like quiet, but believe me, there is more opposition to Abiy in the rest of the country that's going on in Tigray.
Ambassador Asgedom, thank you so much indeed for joining us this evening and giving us some insights on the tragic situation that's playing out in your region, Tigray, in the north of the country. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. All right, that was Ambassador Fisseha Asgedom, who's a former Ethiopian ambassador to the United Nations, as well as Israel and Germany, speaking to us from New York about the situation in his country and particularly his region, pointing squarely at Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister, as the single cause for this current conflict.